All right, well, it is 11:30. We should get started as people trickle in here. I'll go through my typical intro. I want to thank you all for joining us this month for Forward Thinking. I think we've got an interesting topic today that we haven't covered before. While I go through this, feel free to put your name and information listed here into the chat so that you can connect with other people in your area and we can learn about who's on the call, what your organization's all about. I see a good mixture of FSC staff and other partners. We're excited that all of you are here today. Just a little bit about FSC if you don't work here, or a reminder if you do. We are dedicated to helping people get past those obstacles toward high wage sustainable employment. We do that through a variety of programs and connecting them with supportive services and partners like you. So thank you all for being part of our care network and helping to serve everyone that we try to serve. Together we can do great things. We meet people that come in our doors where they are. We meet them where they're at to make sure that we are addressing their specific needs and creating a customized plan to help them achieve their goals. So we hope that if you are a partner that hasn't worked with us before, that you'll consider reaching out to us if you have someone that we could both serve. If you don't know by now, my name is Landon Solano. I'm a communications specialist at Forward Service Corporation. I'm located in the Madison area, but have been known to travel throughout the state. If you have any questions about these sessions, about the newsletter, about anything regarding outreach for FSC, feel free to reach out to me. My email address is here. These slides will be provided to you following this session, so you'll have them for reference. You can also scan the QR code at the bottom of any of these slides to be taken to our FSC website with other ways to get in touch with us. So just a note, today's session is being recorded. This will be provided to you on Friday of this week for future reference. If for some reason you can't attend one of these, but you are still interested in receiving the video, you can still RSVP even if you can't attend, and you will be added to the list to be notified when the video, as well as other resources from today's session, will be provided to you. Other resources being a PDF of today's slide deck from my end, from our speaker's end, as well as a list of updated FSC offices throughout the state so that you can find your local office and connect with our local staff in your area. So today we're covering job access loans, something that is not talked about, I think, quite enough. They are loans that will help people get and keep jobs. I'm not going to step on the toes of our speaker today, but we'll be covering what are job access loans, what they can be used for, how someone can apply for one, and much, much more. But I want to just start with a quick poll question, if I can figure out how to launch this. Where are the polls at here? Oh boy, here we are. Which of the following, and you'll see some options in a second here, which of the following are reasons that you've known someone to have to unfortunately miss out on a job opportunity? Feel free to choose as many of these as you can. I'm sure there are even more than are listed, but the poll should be up on your screen now. Yeah, go ahead and vote. I'm just kind of curious what the numbers look like. Wow. Like watching it dance around. Transportation, housing, yep. Driver's license is surprising me. Not that it's uncommon, but it's not talked about very often. Okay. Wow, yeah, transportation has the majority amount here. I'm gonna share the results in just a second. Give you 10 more seconds to vote here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's take a look at these results. Yeah, transportation coming in at a resounding 96%. Not surprising, unfortunate, something we all know about. And housing as well. Luckily, I think there is some help that can be found in job access loans. I'm gonna stop sharing the results. I will also post these results in the follow-up materials. Transportation presents really difficult and huge obstacles, I should say, to low-income workers trying to not only find jobs, but keep jobs, maintain jobs. Reliable transportation is just an ever-present problem that I feel like isn't given the light. I mean, it's one of the most requested resources people need, yet it's not talked about in terms of the impact that it can have on our economy, on getting and keeping jobs. So I hope that our conversation today can enlighten how job access loans can help with transportation, in addition to a number of other obstacles like transportation that prevent people from getting and keeping jobs. I want to introduce our speaker today, Melissa McGuire. She's the Service Center Manager here at Forward Service Corporation. Melissa, I'm going to hand over the reins to you so you can enlighten us on job access loans.
Thank you much. Landon, I'm having some difficulty on my end to be able to share my screen. I sent you over the presentation. Do you think that you can kind of pull it up for us?
You got it. Give me 1 second to do some tech stuff here. Did you email it?
I dropped it in our
Oh,
chat.
got it. I got it. Yep.
As well.
Let me open this and I will share my screen. Okay, feel free to just direct me whenever you want me to change the slide.
Yeah. So I'm excited to talk with everybody today. I'm Melissa. I work with in the service center for Forward Service Corporation. So typically our team would oversee things like eligibility for the W-2 program, which would also include job access loans, emergency assistance, and that sort of thing. And so I'm excited about job access loans. I think that they're one of the more empowering components for the Wisconsin Works program. And so, so I think it's going to be a good time. So if you want to just kind of move forward, Landon, I think we can jump right in. So job access loans are designed to really help individuals that are either entering the workforce or who are trying to stay within the workforce. And they're basically no interest loans where clients can receive up to $1,600 a month. There isn't any type of like banking hassle or credit check or anything like that. Once they go through kind of the process of the application within the Wisconsin Works program, that piece covers all of that traditional banking part of it. The payments of the loan can be made over the course of 12 months. And we'll kind of get into what this looks like, but that repayment can be a combination of both community service and cash repayment. So essentially, if you think about it, job access loans are kind of like the friend who's got your back when you need a job or you need to keep a job. So it's basically $1,600 in your pocket. There's no interest. You don't have to worry again about any of that banking stuff, the credit score, and then having that full year to pay it back with the option to mix in some community service really tends to speak to the individuals that are looking for it and applying for it. So we talk about job access loans a lot throughout the application process within some of the programs that we oversee eligibility for. It's one of the bigger resources just kind of in our toolkit because of the flexibility that it does offer. So yeah.
Just to clarify, when the $1,600 is a one-time loan, not they can't get $1,600 every month?
Correct. So $1,600 is the maximum loan amendment, like loan amount. That $1,600 can be broken down into different loans, but that $1,600 is kind of the bulk of where it stands at the top end. So why do these JALs exist? So job access loans will also kind of be referred to as JALs throughout the loan, or throughout the presentation. So the idea behind job access loans is really pretty simple. The whole goal is to just kind of smash any of those financial barriers that keep folks from being able to get their dream job. It could be cash for a reliable ride to work. It could be a uniform that wasn't really in the budget. But it's really just about being able to remove some sort of financial barrier that's going to stand in the way between a job seeker and their employment goal. So the assistance can sometimes be the difference between being able to seize an opportunity or having to maybe even pass it up because of some sort of financial constraint. So it really covers a number of different resources that could benefit the individual, anything from transportation to attire. And so it's really just there to cover the costs and ensure that individuals don't have to pass up some sort of employment opportunity because of some sort of immediate financial barrier. And so it's really, again, just designed to help individuals either keep or secure a job that they've kind of been working towards.
Melissa, I hope you don't mind if I'm chiming in with
Oh,
some
please do.
questions. What I find kind of interesting about job access loans from a communications perspective is in trying to write messaging or, tell people about it. It seems like it really is part of the kind of customized plan for people that it's hard to like give a definitive list, even though there is, definitive things, but it seems like it really can help with whatever the specific need of a person coming in might have, which is hard to kind of convey like, oh yeah, whatever you need to get your job, there might be a case for it. Is that accurate, or
Yep,
can you speak to that a little bit more?
yeah, I would say so. And I think that, you could have two individuals applying for the same type of job, but their need behind or their financial need behind kind of moving forward with that job is going to look very different depending on what their situation is. And so, the idea behind the job access loan is that it's going to really speak to the individual's specific situation, what their barriers are going to be, and how do we make sure that they're in a situation to secure that employment. And so the way that we use the loans and the way that we disperse the loans might look a little bit different for each individual. But the idea behind it is that how do we take this resource and actualize it for you so that it fits within your situation and it helps secure employment in the context of what and how you need it. So really, it's just, again, about taking a step back and smashing whatever financial barrier that client has, and that barrier is going to look different. So there is a list, and we'll kind of talk through what are some approved usage of the loan, but there are a lot of ways for us to work with the client in an individual scenario and really talk through how do we apply that financial barrier and that need to keep employment so that it does fall within some of those reasons for or approved usage for the fund.
Awesome, thank you.
So in terms of applying for a job access loan, if you're eligible for the W-2 program, you're already halfway there. So it's really just about hopping online, going, through the access.wisconsin.gov website, or even just connecting directly with FSC's Service Center to just indicate that there's an interest there. So, the application process is pretty straightforward. We will assess eligibility to ensure that you meet the eligibility requirements for Wisconsin Works or W-2. And then there's just the additional 5 or 6 questions that we assess for specifically for that loan. So things like, the financial need, the burden, and that sort of stuff. But you can apply for a job access loan just like you do W-2. So you can if you go to that access.wisconsin.gov website, you can apply for a job access loan by itself. You can also apply for it alongside other benefits. So if you're looking for emergency assistance, or if you're also looking for food share or anything like that. So there's the convenience of making sure that you kind of have a bigger view of what the services are that can be combined. And it's pretty quick and accessible for the most part in terms of just offering support for immediate needs, because the application process is the same as it is for W-2 emergency assistance. So as long as we can just direct the client to either the service center or to that access website, they have the ability to apply for the job access loan anytime. If an individual is already enrolled in W-2, again, they're halfway there. It's just another quick follow-up application specifically for the loan that they need. So it's just about getting connected so that we can kind of talk through the process. It typically takes, anywhere from, on average 10 to, 14 or 15 days from start to finish to be able to initiate the application, talk through the situation, help clients gather the types of verifications that they'll need to confirm eligibility, and then to move forward with a loan. That time frame changes a little bit depending on what sort of use the loan is going to be used for. But it tends to be a little bit quicker than going through a traditional bank or anything like that. So it's just about connecting and submitting that application, and then just moving forward with an eligibility specialist from there.
If you've been attending these sessions for a while, you might remember Melissa from a previous session where she gave an incredible presentation on access. We have that in our library of forward-thinking sessions that you can go look at on YouTube. I would highly recommend that because it was very, very informative, and we're lucky to have Melissa with us again today. Can I just ask real quick, and maybe you'll get into this, the difference between JAL and emergency assistance, and does one exclude you from the other?
They don't, they are separate. So emergency assistance specifically is funds that are geared at helping individuals that are facing some sort of homelessness crisis, whether it's an eviction or they're homeless and they're trying to secure housing. It also assists with things like utilities being disconnected. If you have some sort of financial crisis that's due to a natural disaster, like a fire or a flood. And so those funds specifically within emergency assistance really are specific to that emergency and really providing immediate relief in that context. Job access loans are a little bit bigger than that. They are really about supporting immediate needs to move forward with employment. And so it can help cover the costs of housing and that sort of stuff. But it also has a bigger just reach. So there's things like transportation, there's things like technology. So you can use the benefits alongside each other. There are different kind of criteria for the different types of situations or the different types of needs alongside emergencies that you have. And so those we would really kind of get into specifically with the individual to figure out kind of what their situation is, kind of what has brought them there, and kind of what they need to move forward. But one does not exclude you from the other. It doesn't, there can be some kind of overlap and that sort of stuff. So we always encourage individuals to apply for both, because they're both funding sources used to kind of support immediate needs. And we know oftentimes when individuals are applying for job access loans, there is some sort of emergency crisis that is keeping them from being able to move forward. That's why they've reached out for help. And so we will look at the different ways that they'll overlap and piece together how we can maximize the payment and maximize the support so that we can address all of the issues that are going to impact their ability to not only obtain employment, but also maintain it. And so the use of more than one support, particularly with the job access loan and overlapping it within, the W-2 program or emergency assistance or, food share or some of those other benefits, really is about looking at what are your immediate needs for today, but also how do we ensure that you have what you need so that as you transition to the employment, you also have the right supports in place. So there certainly can be some overlap. You won't be excluded from one over the other. We would look at which funding source makes the most sense for the situation because there are caps for the different services. So, within emergency assistance, you can receive a payment once every 12 months. Job access loans, there's a maximum loan amount of $1,600. So as we look at the situation, as we look at what the needs are, how do we use the services in a way that are going to support you both now, but also as you move forward? So, are you securing, are you obtaining a vehicle now so that you can, receive employment so that, your next step is going to be secure housing? And so how do we stack them and how do we wrap them together so that it not only supports right now, but the journey through employment and maintaining it? So, those are usually assessed individually, but oftentimes you're going to see them, kind of coupled together and making sure that individuals have all of the support and all of the resources available to them and used in a way that makes the most sense for their situation.
Awesome. Thank you.
So what can job access loans be used for? So there are a number of different things. Primarily the first thing that comes to mind are vehicles, whether it's a car repair, a loan, insurance, there's some sort of transportation. And that's kind of the immediate thought with job access loans. It's the number one thing that we usually approve loans for, but it goes well above and beyond that. So if you kind of imagine, yourself in a situation where your car's making that I'm about to break down noise again, or you just landed an interview and you also need to have the right apparel for work or the right shoes. And so it kind of covers that whole experience, not just that, how do I get to my job? And so, maybe you are going to go remote and you need new technology, or you have a job, but you have to move for it. And so it really is going to cover everything from work boots to driver's license fees to, transportation, work apparel, technology, all of these things. So anything that really kind of falls within these categories that are going to help you get and keep a job, that's really where job access loans come in and have your back. So, transportation again is the biggest thing. Oftentimes we see those car repairs, we see loans, insurance, we also see new purchases. So there are a number of different things that kind of fall within that transportation category. Work apparel again is one of the bigger ones, just making sure that they have the interview clothes, they do have uniforms. There's some technology involved. So do you have the computers for remote work? Are you starting a new business and do you need certain things that are going to be tied to that? And then Landon, if you just want to go to the next slide as well, there are a couple other areas listed. One more back, sorry. So there's also going to be things like tools and supplies, so work boots, cleaning supplies. There's relocation and housing. So if there's, if you're facing eviction or if you need to move and the move is related to employment. So there are things that we can use in terms of housing. There are a lot of legal things that you can use it for. So fees or fines, there's some insurance for a driver's license. And so it really, the job access loans really can be used for, anything that kind of falls within those categories, from start to finish, from either getting a job, whether it's self-employment, starting a new business. So there are a number of different approved reasons for the fund. And so a lot of times if individuals are looking at these lists and they're thinking, okay, these are the things that they can be approved for, I don't know that it necessarily falls within that. There are a lot of ways to make sure that the things that the client needs or the situation does fit within these categories. So as you can see, there are 6 or 7 bigger kind of sections and then the things that fall within those. And so as individuals are starting to kind of think about how is it they can determine whether or not what they need the job access loan for can be kind of used with the funds. The first thing that we do when we're talking with clients is just talking about, what are the employment related expenses that you might have related to either getting or keeping this job that you want or starting your own business. And how do we talk through what the job access loan and how the job access loan can address those needs. So, really just talking and enabling your clients to kind of think through financially, what is the cost of them obtaining or maintaining that employment, and then working with an eligibility specialist or a case manager within the W-2 program to talk through, okay, how do those financial costs come tied back to these different sections, and how do we make sure that we think through how they're related. So even though, again, there's only 6 or 7, these really have the ability, there's a lot of gray area. And so we have the ability to really talk through, again, what is that immediate need? What is it that's keeping you from a financial burden? What is it keeping you from moving forward? And how do we then tie it back to these same areas? Because these are the types of things that it looks to approve for. So again, just what are those employment related expenses that are going to enable you to overcome some sort of obstacle that's going to make it hard for you to get employment. And then we kind of work through how we get that approved for that job access loan and show that that's the qualifying need for it. So if your client or your case manager can kind of talk through or think through how it's related to obtaining and maintaining that employment, it's usually a pretty good start to getting that as an approved reason for needing the fund. One of the best parts, though, about the receiving the job access loan really comes back to the repayment options. They've kind of structured the job access loan and the repayment options to be accommodating and sensible for individuals that have some sort of emergency need or, financial need coming into receiving new employment or maintaining their employment. And so, there's a cap at the monthly repayment of $134 a month. So if you received a loan or if you received, a number of different loans that totaled that $1,600, as you start to repay back that payment, you wouldn't see a client in a situation where they ever have to repay back more than that $134 payment. So that would be that maximum cap of the payment. There are a number of different ways that they can choose to pay back. So they can repay back just their payment each month with cash, or they have the ability to do community service. And so it's really about making repayments as painless as possible for the client so that they can focus on what really matters in terms of their job and their life and what their situation is. And so with the community service, they had the ability to engage in volunteer hours so that they can repay their loan back that way as well. And so it also offers a lot of opportunity for clients just to start networking, skill building opportunities. So there's really a nice balanced approach to repayment that's going to respect the client's financial situation, but also whatever their goals are kind of moving forward. It's not set up in a way to overburden the client while supporting the community, or their engagement in volunteer or their engagement in their job. So what happens is, an individual is approved for a loan, and then when they start to move forward and they get their loan approved, they take the amount of the loan that you received, they divide that amount over a period of 12 months, because you do have a 12-month period to repay the loan, and then you would start to see payment kind of coming into that following month. So there are some conversations just around budgeting, around how that repayment option is going to fit in as you move forward with your income. So not only are they, given the flexible repayment options, they're also, having the ability to sit down and kind of talk through, the budget perspective of things, how do we make that payment within kind of the situation? Are there some other, gains from being able to do community service? And so that repayment might look a little different for the individuals that are applying, but it really kind of has that set standard of how do we make it so that it's not overburdening the client, and supporting them to make sure that they have what they need and that they can pay it back realistically. And so it's really set to support the client in that way. It also offers, again, just that first month of being able to transition back into a place where they can then financially repay the payment as well. So there's a little bit of a just a delay in getting the service and then being able to get into a space where you're repaying it back and getting into that routine.
Yeah, I want to be kind of explicit about that, since we have a question in the chat about, does repayment start right away or is there a delay? So you're saying there's a 1 month delay before repayment starts to be a factor?
Yep, they would be repaying in the following month.
Okay. And I would also just emphasize that this is a good opportunity for anyone engaging with job access loans to take advantage of some of our financial education services and resources that we offer and that our partners offer. It seems like it would be a good way, as you're saying, to budget and start thinking about how to get into a place where you can start paying it back and what that looks like over the course of.
Yeah, and depending on how the client has come to apply for the job access loan, you will see individuals that, for example, they're enrolled into the W-2 program. They've been working alongside a case manager. They've now secured employment and they're applying for the job access loan as an individual that's enrolled. And so not only are we talking through just the financial assistance of the job access loan, there's a lot of case management assistance that comes with it as well. There are the budget conversations. There's a little bit of the conversation of just benefit cliffs and what sort of impact is that going to have on benefits moving forward. So when they start to talk about expenses and they start to talk about income, that's where that case management steps in as well to kind of talk through and help them navigate, is it a viable option for them? If it's not, kind of what's the next best service for them? And so there's the financial support, but then again, there's also that case management support that really helps the client in this situation take the context and learn a skill that they're going to be able to continue to use as they move forward and they start to potentially come off of benefits, or they their household income is changing. So there are a number of other impacts, I think, that come along with the job access loan that might not be as apparent, but there's a lot of work that happens between the individual applying and either the eligibility specialist or the ongoing case manager that's kind of been assisting them in that decision and what it looks like to apply and what it looks like after the fact. And so there are a lot of other just case management pros that come along with that job access loan process and applying and kind of moving forward as well. So why job access loans are a game changer? So kind of what's the hype behind job access loan? And I think one of the biggest things that we see across the board is that these loans are set up in a way to really give individuals the leg up that they need to snag the job that they want or keep their lights on, or just to be able to move forward. It does remove some financial obstacles to employment. It's going to address some of those immediate needs. It's going to empower individuals towards, just stability and self-sufficiency. It also does contribute, again, just back to the community in terms of volunteering, in terms of, quality work that's also being given back from the individual. So it's really just about offering the stability for individuals to build the life that they want. And so again, even though these loans are really focused on an immediate need right now, it really is about that growth, and it's about, how do we offer some sort of catalyst to build confidence and independence, and how do we offer financial support in a way that is going to be more than just monetary aid. I think that that's one of the things that we look at and we really encourage and talk through within all of our programs, outside of just that financial cash assistance, what other services or offerings do you get just by extension? And that's kind of one of those things with the job access loan, is that they really do help in that respect as well. It's so much more than just that financial need that they're addressing. And so it really gives more, again, both to the individual and the community in and of itself. And so it's about how helping that one individual with that one loan is going to kind of come back and help them level up for their family, their situation, their employment, as well as the community. And so they really have a big impact across the board and across a number of different people. And so that's why we tend to see them having such a big impact. Last year was one of the first years where the funds were exhausted for job access loans. So the number of loans that were given out was just much higher than what we've kind of seen before. And so, once we hit November of last year, those funds were exhausted. And so, there's been a lot to just say, okay, how is it that these loans were used? What is the benefit to them? How do we keep them going? And so we do a lot and we encourage a lot in terms of just how do we get these funds to the individual so that we can address the need. Because once we address those needs, it really opens up additional doors to kind of move forward, both for them and then from a case management perspective. So the impact alone is just, I think, much broader than people, and much more far-reaching than people realize, because we're usually just focused on what is that immediate need or what's that financial need. So they really do have a much bigger impact in the big scheme of things. And then, so kind of what's next, based on this conversation, like where are we supposed to go with it? And I think, one of the biggest things that we need help with is just spreading the good word about job access loan, really making sure that anyone that could use a job access loan knows it's there for them, that they understand that there is this service. How do they get to it? And then how do we kind of support them through that process? So that's kind of where we would ask that you guys are helping us just kind of spread that word and getting the community and the clients involved in kind of buzzing around. There's this great resource that can be used, and they are being used. And so we just want to make sure that everybody that's eligible for it, or even potentially eligible knows about it and can access it. So there are a lot of different areas that provide information on job access loans. So there's some information on our internal or our FSC website that also provides some additional information. So really just if those individuals have some sort of need that's tied to employment, and they're facing some sort of financial crisis, or they need just some relief for a financial burden, keeping in mind that there is some additional funding through the job access loan and within W-2 and that sort of stuff, so that we can get those funds to the individuals and actualize the services more than just saying, hey, they're available. So just making sure that you guys are encouraging folks to apply, and that you guys have what you need to be able to just share it with them, so that we can get folks the funds to really move forward in employment.
That's the trick. All these programs are just, how do you let people know that there's help out there? It's hard to assume that they know about it already, but yeah, it's a big job.
Yeah. And in truth, job access loans are part of the W-2 program, and the W-2 program is mandated by policy, and there's a lot of policy around a lot of different areas. And so, I think at the end of the day, what's most important is if you have an individual that is seeking employment, or they have employment and they have found themselves in a situation where they're struggling to move forward because they have some sort of barrier, if they're in a situation where some financial assistance could offer relief so that they can continue to move forward with that, and they can get to a place where they're kind of working towards their dream job or they're working within their dream job, the job access loan could potentially help. And so being able to just, have some awareness of the fact that there is a potential loan out there, even if, the situation might be a little bit, hard to say, yep, that falls within policy or no, it doesn't. That's the person you still want to refer. If they have a financial need and they're moving towards employment, that's a great referral to kind of talk with about the job access loan, sending them back to the service center so that we can kind of help them assess their situation. If for some reason the job access loan isn't the best option for them in the current situation, we'll help them find a different resource. And so, even if there's not like 100% confident, yep, this person needs to be referred for a job access loan. I know that they're the great candidate. Just knowing that they have that financial need and they're moving towards employment is the first step in just letting them know that there's going to be some additional assistance to help them secure that. And those are the individuals that we would encourage you to reach out to and push back towards us as well. Because again, there are so many different ways that we can use the funds to support people. Last year in 2023, we used nearly 200% above of our budget, what we had kind of been extended to use. And so we were able to take the funds and use them in a way that went well above and beyond what we had expected. And so there's always ways to find a resource or a service that can be available, and a job access loan is no different. So we can find ways to really make sure that we're getting them to the right people. So if you have that client that has that need, that's kind of the best place to start.
Okay, I guess that's the end of the presentation. I have a few questions for you to
Yeah.
get us started, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
First, one of the things I personally like about I like about the service, but as someone in communications who has to explain it to people, it becomes difficult. As I was saying earlier, those categories that help can fall under transportation,
Mhm.
relocation, etc. Seems like there's a lot of ability to be creative in order to address particular needs of whoever's coming to us for help, and that it's almost like notes on a musical chart or something, where there's only a finite amount of notes, but within those you can get infinitely creative.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's not really a question. It's something I observe about job access loans that I find very interesting.
Yeah, they are very creative, and more often than not, you'll find an eligibility specialist and a quality support specialist or somebody that understands policy really well, collaborating to make sure that individuals can benefit from the job access loan, because there are a lot of different ways to approach the need and being able to position it in a way that makes sense alongside the policy. And so again, even though there are, specific categories, there's so much that can be done to really talk about the situation and engage the client in a conversation to make sure that you're getting to the heart of the service, how it's used, how it's, dispersed, to really fit individuals within those categories. Because oftentimes, they are within those categories, and it's just a matter of how you're saying it. And so really just being able to have that conversation kind of sets it apart. So, and again, it's more about looking at, how can the funds be used for direct employment related expenses? And that's really the heart of it. And so as long as we can show and share that, there is some sort of direct employment related expense, and, we have a lot of different creative ways and of tying it back to those categories. And so, yeah.
We do have a few questions here. Margaret, it sounds like you have a question. You were next in line.
Yes, I have a question. I know the prior funding, they gave out more money. I think it was maybe like 20, maybe I want to say 2,500 or so to try to purchase a car. If so, but with the $1,600, it's virtually just, just about impossible to find something that is reliable that they can keep up. Does this go up if they find a car that's a little bit more, or are they maxed out and, or, can they use the title as, I want to say, like down payment if it was some more, like as collateral or something? Because I know that they were already having a hard time trying to find a vehicle for the 2,200 or so. I know that they're gonna have a super duper time, trying to find one for the max of 1,600. Or do you guys know of any place that will accept that or have those type of vehicles?
So one of the bigger challenges is with that is the amount of the cost of cars, the cost of living has changed. That's kind of a post-COVID thing. And so you certainly find individuals that have difficulty using the loan as is by itself, $1,600 out of the door to purchase a vehicle. And so I'm not aware of situations where they're giving more funding for that. So it's really about, again, talking with the client, figuring out what sort of services or what their immediate need is, what their financial need is, and how do we combine services in order for them to be able to move forward. So if it's about, if they're in a space where that $1,600 doesn't cover the cost of the car, is there another service where they can combine it to that $1,600? And so, again, there are going to be caps on how much the loan can be used for, but that's where we get into the space of what are the overlapping services that are available? How do we combine benefits? How do we combine resources so that at the end of the day, they cover what the client needs kind of moving forward? And so I think we've seen, a little bit of a decrease in just the $1,600 for car purchases, but we've seen it where, again, it's an increase in car repairs and that sort of stuff. And so it's about working individually with the client to figure out what it is their financial need is. What is that immediate need? Does the job access loan make sense as the service that's going to help them remove that so that they can obtain or maintain employment? And if it's not, why isn't it? Does it need to be paired with another benefit? Do we need to look at other benefits? A job access loan might not be the most appropriate service for every situation. If somebody is trying to purchase a vehicle that's $5,000, if they don't have, the $3,400 to pair with the $1,600, that $1,600 loan may not make sense in that situation. And so again, it's just about how do we look at the client situation? What is that need? And how do we determine if the job access loan is going to be the most appropriate? And if it's not, what other services may be available to that individual so that they can obtain or maintain employment? And if their goal is to be able to purchase a vehicle and they aren't able to purchase a vehicle with the job access loan today, and subsequently then they're not able to have that employment opportunity at that time, is there a way to discuss enrollment into the W-2 program so that they have cash assistance coming in so that we can talk through savings so that we can get them to a place where $1,600 is all they need to put towards a car? So it's really about working with that client, figuring out what their need is and offering some sort of individualized support because the parameters and the policy around what is offered with job access loan doesn't change. So it's about just, gathering as many services and benefits as possible to help the client move forward in a way that financially makes sense. And so it may not be the best option in every situation.
Thank you.
We have 3 other questions. I want to make sure we have time to get to them all here. Angela is asking, what happens if they cannot pay it back or do the community service?
So there are a couple different things that come into that. There are, so it depends. Are we talking like they missed one payment, they've missed different payments? And so, if you have a loan, there are no harsh penalties or anything like that. There's nothing that applies back to credit. So first and foremost, they're designed to support individuals. And so it's really going to focus on support rather than any type of punitive measure. So there aren't severe consequences like those associated with, commercial loans, harsh credit reporting, legal actions, that sort of stuff. Again, because it's not a punitive service. There are again alternative repayment options. So if somebody is using cash and then they move and they no longer have the cash, if they want to move to volunteer, they can. And then there's really an assessment of the situation. So what is kind of happening within that situation? Is it they can't pay for it moving forward? If you have an outstanding balance on a job access loan, it will impact your ability to be able to apply for another job access loan if you have like outstanding payments. So there is going to be, an impact on your ability to then gain another job access loan, because they're not, job access loans aren't set up in a situation where you can have one and then that's it. You can borrow up to that maximum. So if you need to come in and apply for another loan, if you have outstanding balances that aren't paid, it will and could potentially impact your ability to borrow again towards that $1,600, because that $1,600 amount is kind of a revolving amount. So there will be some impact on eligibility kind of moving forward in that way. But there would be no like punitive measure that would be taken. There's no harsh penalties or anything like that. They would just kind of assess the situation, talk through if there's, a more flexible repayment option, like moving from a cash payment to in kind where you're doing community service, and that sort of stuff.
That's a good segue into the next question, which is this a one-time loan or can they reapply after a certain amount of time? You had mentioned EA can be applied for once every 12 months. Yep. So if there's a certain amount of time or after the first loan is paid off, what does the reapplication look like for JALs?
So the application process is always the same. You apply through the W-2 program. And you move forward and they assess the situation. Again, what are you currently applying for? What do you need what are the loans being used for? Are you eligible? And do you meet the requirements both of the W-2 program as well as then the job access loan itself? There isn't a time frame as far as how often you can apply. There is just that cap on how much you can receive. So if if you have a loan for $1,300 out that you're actively paying for, and you need another $700 for a different need, those loans can coexist. That threshold really comes to that $1,200 or that $1,600 mark, and how that's broken down to in terms of different loans or timeframes or anything like that doesn't really come into play. It's just one, do you have, available funds towards that $1,600 that you then can receive as a loan? And then is there, are you eligible for a loan at that point?
Can I clarify just in the example you gave there, you said someone has a $1,300 loan and they need another $700. They can have coexisting $1,600 JAL limits or like with different loans, or would it just be they need an extra $700, but they only
Correct.
get $300 because that's the cap of the 16?
Correct. So they can have coexisting loans, but the total of all of the loans combined cannot exceed the $1,600.
Got it. Okay. Yep.
Yep.
Want to make sure of that.
Yep. And so if you have a loan though, again, so that second loan and those subsequent loans really then come down to eligibility though. So you can have an existing loan. And if you have an existing loan, that then changes some of the eligibility for your next loan. So have you stopped paying? Is there default? So that's what that second loan is. You just still have to be eligible for the second loan. So those loans can coexist. They just can't exceed that $1,600, and each subsequent loan you have to still be determined eligible. So if there's some sort of lingering impact from that initial job access loan or that a different job access loan that you have, that would also just have to be determined for the second loan. But you could have separate loans as long as they don't exceed $1,600.
I have to admit, I am terrible at math, so maybe this question is completely irrelevant. But on that, I mean, like if you are, let's say you have $1,600 loan and you pay it down to $1,300. And then 1 month down the road, you need that $300 back. Can you reapply for a $300 loan within that, even though you already hit your $1,600 limit once? How does that work?
Yep. So it's about what is your current balance and how much and what's your status in repaying it. So if you've paid your loan down, there's still some flexibility in not exceeding that $1,600.
Cool. All right, cool. We have a pretty important question. Hopefully it'll be pretty easy to answer though. In the application, is the application offered in other languages? We have a refugee case manager here who is serving someone who English isn't their first language. What does that look like for the diversity of people applying?
Yep. So we would handle the application process the same way. We would use translation services, whether it's a language bake. There are some limitations as to how we can generate the application itself or how the paperwork can be generated. There are certain languages that, we can, that it's offered in, but in terms of being able to use the application, process the application, go through the application with the client, determine eligibility, we can offer it in any of the languages, just as we would any other service. So if we're at a situation where there's a form that's not specifically offered in that language, there's some opportunities to use a language line to read through the form and that sort of thing. So language wouldn't, limit our ability to offer assistance or, provide the application to anyone.
Not to topic hop here, but since we are, asking people and, the process is to apply through W-2 or for W-2 and JAL/EA through Access. Does Access have different languages in their online tool, or is that something where you need translation services as well?
Access, I believe, has just Spanish and English as the primary languages. And so if an individual is applying and they're looking for that to be translated in their service, that would be one where they typically are referred directly to the service center and we assist them through language services. But I believe it's limited. Those are the two primary that I know of. There may be a couple other that are French. I think it's French, Spanish, and something like that. But the majority of them really are specific to Spanish and English.
I think that's all the questions we have in the chat. I have one that I'm just kind of curious about as we wrap this up. As far as community service is concerned about the repayments, is that something that there's a list of approved types of community service that are mandated, by the people funding the loans, or is that something that you can get creative with as well?
We can get creative with it. It looks different, volunteering and work experience looks a little bit different in each of the counties or the locations that individuals live in. There are some, requirements behind establishing, an appropriate work site or an approved work site and that sort of thing. But, as an organization, we put a lot of effort into obtaining and maintaining those sites. And so, there is some flexibility in the types of sites that are offered. If there's a specific type of site, or if there's a site that a client is looking for that we haven't, obtained as approved site, there are things that we can do internally to work with those individuals to make sure that they meet the requirements. And so with the repayment for volunteering, it's not us saying you have to specifically go to this site and do this volunteer work in order to pay it back. That is a conversation between the case manager and the individual in terms of what site is it, how many hours would be required, what does it look like, and that sort of thing. So there is a lot of flexibility to it. There would just need to be a conversation around, okay, how do we make sure it's approved? How do we make sure it's safe? Those conversations.
Cool. All right. Well, we're at our time. Melissa, thank you so much for being here and your wonderful presentation. I want to just urge people to follow us on social media. You can find us on the following platforms, and to help us shape these future sessions about topics, how we're currently doing, you You can follow this little QR code or visit the website below it to give us some feedback. Let us know how we can improve in the future. I look at them and it really helps me to shape these. So just want to thank everyone for your afternoon and joining us today. I hope you got a lot out of this. I will follow up on Friday with all of the follow-up materials, and you can certainly reach out to either of us should you have any questions. Melissa, I just want to thank you again for being here, and I hope you will all join us again next month when we will be tackling mental health for expecting and current mothers to dovetail with Mother's Day and Mental Health Awareness Month. So looking forward to that topic. Thank you all for being here, and I hope you all have a great afternoon.
Thank you so much.